All right, let's talk about the ups and downs of Eternal Strands. Let's start with the good. This game has a pretty good story. The story is actually pretty good. There's a lot of really interesting characters. They're very well voiced. They're believable. They're nuanced. The twists and turns of the story are interesting. It's high stakes. It's a unique world they've built. All of that is very good. Some of the art direction is interesting in a good way. They have different kinds of cutscenes. Like some are full 3D rendered. Some are just still hand-drawn text. Most of them are. And then some are actually full hand-drawn cutscenes. The hand-drawn cutscenes are really cool. We'll talk about the rest of the art style in a minute. But the hand-drawn art scenes are hand-drawn cutscenes are really cool. The basic idea of the fighting in this game, where you have to crawl onto these giant things to kill them, they don't do that enough in video games. It is when this game is at its very best, you are crawling on some beast trying to take it down, and that can be pretty fun. So I like that. Also, the crafting in this game, the crafting system is really cool. I really like the crafting system. There's all these different craftable resources that you get from everywhere, just like any other game with crafting. But when you forge weapons and gear, you have a choice of which you can use higher rarity stuff to make better stuff. There's a lot of systems like that will allow you to upgrade your equipment. But this one, right out the gate, if you use 5-star stuff right out the gate, you'll just automatically craft a high-level sword. That's a really cool idea, especially later in the game when you've got more resources to work with. So I really liked the crafting. And also, if you use different kinds, and it'll give you more heat resistance, cold resistance. I've seen that kind of thing in games before, but it was well done. The crafting is well done. Now let's talk about the problems. Let's start with the high level stuff. Some of the graphics and art design stuff is rough. When they do the 3D cutscenes, the textures constantly feel like they haven't fully popped in, like they just haven't fully rendered. Everything looks really splotchy and washed out. I mean, it just looks like, when you see a cutscene start and the textures take a second to pop in, the whole cutscenes look like that. It looks pretty bad at times. It's passable. The actual design is fine. It's got kind of a cartoony art style, but the textures look rough. The cutscenes, I was talking about the story being cool before. The story is cool, but 99% of the story is just delivered through... It's voiced, thank God, but it's just text and just still 2D characters almost the whole time. You might be used to something like that if you play a lot of turn-based RPGs or narrative, like visual novels and stuff like that. But for a game like this, boy, it really, when you want to get back to the action, it really drags. I mean, there's long cutscenes with lots of dialogue. And they just take 10, 15 minutes sometimes to go through all this dialogue. And you're just listening to them. And again, thank God it's voiced, but it can get pretty boring. We talked about the climbing being fun. It is. Well, let's talk about the gameplay in general. First of all, the combat is boring. The general combat is boring. You have some magic spells and stuff that you can use, but most of them aren't very good. So you usually are just, at least I was usually just relying on my sword to just chop away at enemies. And you just have the same 3-hit combo this whole game. And so that's pretty much all you're doing when you're actually trying to do damage to just regular enemies. Again, the bosses that you climb on, they're a little bit different. But when you're just fighting regular enemies, you're just chopping away most of the time. It gets really old really fast. When it does come to the climbing is fun when it works. But it is very finicky. Trying to jump on and off is really, like, you'll end up attached to some place you don't want to get attached to. You jump off in the wrong direction. You don't really have control of your direction at all when you're jumping on or off. It's a mess, and it's very frustrating. So that's a little bit of an issue. The game just has some bugs. It crashed on me twice. just entirely crashed. It's a launch game, so I'm pretty much used to that at this point. But it does have some issues with just crashing. And I didn't like the mission structure. This game does a thing that a lot of games these days do that I don't like, but I recognize it's a preference thing, where it'll have like a main mission, but then in order to do the mission, you have to complete a side mission, and in order to do the mission, you have to do a side mission, and whatever. I don't really like that, because it's not a side mission at that point, right? That's just a main mission, so why are you calling it a side mission? But this game goes way overboard with that stuff. It'll put 4, 5, 6 side missions crammed into a main quest, to the point where by the time I got done with the game, I did most of the side quests, because they were all actually required. I just don't know why you would make the structure like that. Just make it part of the main quest. Why make side quests required? And then there were times where there would be a quest inside of a quest. Inside of a quest? I mean, at that point, what are we doing? Where the main quest says, complete this side quest in order to complete the main quest. And then this quest says, complete these other 2 quests to complete this side quest. Give me a break with that shit. It's confusing. It's not fun. It's not side content at that point if you're just forcing me to do the side content. By the way, a lot of the games surrounds these big giants that you have to take down. At some point in the game, there's a mission where, like they give you the options, like, hey, if you take these guys down a certain number of times, you can upgrade your skills or whatever. And it's an attractive prospect if the combat were better, but since the combat's kind of boring, it's not really that attractive, so I didn't do it. At a certain point in the game, they make you upgrade all of your skills to max level. All of them. Like a 1 in each category, which you have to kill several bosses several times in a row in order to complete a main quest. You've probably played games like Hollow Knight and a whole bunch of others where after you beat the boss, you have the option to go and fight it again for fun or for extra rewards. And that can be a lot of fun. That can be really fun side content. But I don't think I've ever played a game that required you to kill the bosses over and over again. I'm talking 3, 4, 5 times I had to kill some of these bosses. And that's not, we're getting in the weeds a little bit here, but sometimes those bosses weren't even in the world. So you had to they would spawn in different places in the world at different times, and they would tell you where they were, but they wouldn't really tell you when you could expect. So I'm waiting for this boss to show up so that I can complete the main quest, a boss I've already killed twice, mind you, and the only way to get it to show up was to kill the boss that was in its place so that it would get out of the way. So I ended up killing dozens of bosses multiple times, and it was not, again, if the climbing mechanics were better, if the general combat were better, I would mind a lot less. I'd still mind because I think that's still shitty, but I would mind less. But the combat is mundane, and the climbing is really just off-putting with how janky it is, and so I was sick of it by that point. You don't make a side quest like that. You just don't do it. I think it's just bad game design. Anyway, that's about all I have. Overall, I would say that I do not like this game. The combat's too repetitive and boring. The climbing isn't repetitive. It's fun when it works properly, but it often doesn't. And the paces that this game puts you through, where you basically have to do most of the side quests in order to beat the game, is tiresome. It's padded. This game could be... This game has about 7 to 8 hours of solid main quest content, and the other half that I got through was just a waste of time. A lot of fetch quests. A lot of this game is just fetch quests. It's either taking down those giants or it's fetch quests. That's pretty much all you're doing the whole game. So overall, I did not like it. I think it's got a lot of big problems. It has... Some of the bones are there, some of the foundation is there for a good game, but overall, not a fan of this game. Did not enjoy it. Alright, that's it. I'll stop complaining. But I'm not a fan. I didn't have to pay for it. It was on Game Pass, so that's nice. Alright, that's it. Last order of business. Eternal Strands, it's been fun, but we are now going to delete you from our console and never play you again. See ya. Peace. I will not be playing Eternal Strands 2.